presented. I know that it would be my personal opinion, since we have a lot to accomplish, that we potentially move up the election of the officers, as well as just briefly talk about the letter that did go out to every commissioner. So other than that, is there other? I mean, I guess first of all, is there general consensus on changing the agenda to move that up? And I guess after that, we can entertain any other additions or deletions to the agenda.
I'd like to add something to the agenda.
Okay.
I emailed to you. I thought it was appropriate about the DIA.
Oh, the DIA. Okay, I'll put that under new business.
Thank you.
I guess discussion about moving up the vote. Is there any comments?
Fine.
No. Okay. Okay. Great. I guess let's just get a vote on that. Affirm. So can I get a motion?
So moved. I'll support.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda would be the approval of meeting minutes. Aaron sent out the meeting minutes back in December, as well as I did send a copy out with our agenda packet. So I guess, is there any comments on the meeting minutes? Okay, great job, Aaron.
Brian, just to clarify, I had sent 2 versions. The second one had been amended, so I think we do have to vote on it, don't we?
The second one was amended? Okay.
The second version I sent out.
Okay. Would you mind providing a little bit of explanation on what was amended? Because I'm not sure if I have a copy with me in front of me. So.
Sure. Well, Wally might want to speak more to it, but I received just an excerpt that he wanted to include of some minor editing.
Okay. So I'm just trying to remember which part was actually amended. Was it just...
I don't know if you have an electronic copy. I'm pretty sure I highlighted it.
Okay.
And then I had made one change, and I underlined my change.
Gotcha.
But my change was I had mistaken somebody's name.
Okay. Well, while I'm looking up, I guess, can we... is there any discussion about the amended meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, I guess we can move to approve the meeting minutes as revised. Can I get a motion?
I'll make motion.
Can we get a second?
Aye.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Next, we have open public comment, and we do have individuals within the room. I know that we have the Honorable Kali Huprian with us in the audience tonight. Kali, thank you for coming out. Would you like to come up to the podium and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kali Huprian, and I'm recently elected to the Groseal School Board of Education. And I received a call from Mr. Posiak asking me if I would be interested in looking at the Bike Commission and possibly being a liaison between the school board and the commission. And I told him that I would like to come to the meeting to see what your agenda is and to see if I would be interested by observing the meeting and to see if I could be of any help. And if I thought it was feasible, then I would bring the recommendation to the board to see if they were interested in having a liaison. I cannot make that decision on my own, so I'm here to gather information.
Okay. Well, great. We're very glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that is interested in open public comment? I know.
I would like to invite Mr. Pfeiffer up.
Yeah, I know Dale has to know if he wants to. No, I'm on there, Dale.
I'm Wes Pfeiffer, reside at 23477 West River Road, and also the owner of PIBC, which was contracted to do some repairs for the bicycle path bridges on Groseal. When I entered into this agreement, Wally and I met and walked the path and stuff, and I said once I was done with the work that I would give us an assessment of the status of these bridges and how we should possibly go forward if there was any need to do anything more. So what I put together here briefly for you is just a real quick summary, and that is that the general appearance of the bridges that appear to be in rough shape is really due to the overzealous power washing, mainly on the top rail of the handrail. This has caused the grain to rise, and it gives the appearance that the dimensional lumber is starting to fail. That being said, the maintenance program that was put in place has done an excellent job of preserving these bridges, and for the structural integrity of the wood members and as a whole are holding up quite well. The thoroughfare bridge, which is the longest of the three bridges, sustained cosmetic damage to the power from the power washing. All these bridges, any damaged, broken timbers were replaced. Any compromised deck boards were replaced. But the top rail, unless it was splintered, broke, or something along those lines that made it a hazard, if it was just raised grain, we took a belt sander to them and lowered the grain to salvage the wood, and basically there was really no reason to replace the wood just for cosmetics at this point. So that was all done, and sealer was put on that wood. On the thoroughfare bridge, Wally was concerned that the railing, especially on the south end, was very loose when you grabbed hold of it. It had a lot of play in it. And so one of the things that we did was go through and check the nuts and bolts on all the rail posts and stuff. And during that process, we discovered that during the sewer project, when that south end of the bridge was removed and then reworked and extended, the Simpson CB46 brackets, which are the post brackets, were put in, I can't believe they're correct, put in properly. They're 90 degrees off. They should be on a north-south axis so that the through bolts are what gives its ability to the post from rocking back and forth. Right now, the legs of the bracket is what is holding the post, giving that movement. So it's the weakest part of the bracket, and that's why you have the movement. You can tighten the bolts all day long. It's going to have that much movement. You just have too much of a pivot point, too much leverage. But the rest of the damaged wood and stuff has been repaired in that bridge, and it's good to go. Found no issues with the joists or anything else along those lines. The Meridian Bridge, which is the oldest bridge across from Meridian School, suffered a minimal amount of damage with the power washers. But it also is the one that has the most concern, and kind of why I said that we need to have I wanted to make sure we had this little closure on this thing. The top of the joists are starting to turn punky. Every deck board that I did replace, I found the same scenario on the joist, and it's every joist going across. There is a product that I've used in the residential thing. It's CPES. It's a water-based resin epoxy that you brush onto the timber, and it saturates and hardens. Structurally, it's as sound as a new piece of timber. Bad part, you got to remove the deck to do it. I think that given the shape of the deck boards, for budgetary purposes, I would say you probably have 50% salvage, just knowing how they broke, how they came up, and what I had to do to bring them up the first time for the ones I had to replace. Sounder wood should be able to be salvaged, but there's definitely be some breakage on it. You won't be able to salvage all of it. And then we have to coat the top of those things. Doing that, you'll get as much life back out of the bridge as you got right now. I mean, everything else is nice and solid on that thing. If any of the posts start to go, the way they're designed is just some blocking. We can remove any vertical post, support post, by removing the nuts and bolts in two locations and removing that piece of timber and putting a new one in. So the major thing with this is the joist. You rebuild the bridge completely, let it go until it just cannot hold the deck boards anymore securely. Or you be proactive and you put some money into the budget to proceed along this type of path. By using the epoxy, it would definitely be less expensive than replacing all the joist material itself. Again, you also rare to use some of the deck boards over, but it won't be a inexpensive proposition, but it's going to be cheaper than rebuilding an entire bridge. If we do nothing and just maintain our maintenance program, I think you probably got 3 to 7 years before those joists give out, where they're just not holding the fasteners of the deck boards to the joists anymore. They're just too punky. And that can be monitored as if we go through the same procedure on a yearly thing. If we need deck boards replaced, replace a series of deck boards. You can check the top of the joist at that time and see how it's holding up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not up here for doom and gloom, and it has to be done immediately. It's just something that the longer you wait, the more epoxy you're going to use, and the possibility of not having to go too far and you have to rebuild it up. And in that case, so something like that, you don't build that up, you just replace the timber at that point. Right now, the timber dimensional is still there, it's just starting to get punky. About 1/8 of an inch coming down from the top of the surface.
Would you mind describing what punky means?
Rotten wood. We all seen dry rot?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by punky. This is pressure treated wood. Since I built this bridge, if I remember the specs on that correctly, that was 0.60 CCA treated at the time. It was a standard treatment for wood. CCO is below grade, even though this was above grade. We use that for the support material. And what we have is just the fasteners coming down through, create a raceway for water. It's a flat surface, water sits there, it's set down on the top there. For whatever reasons, the age of that bridge, you're starting to see some punkiness on it.
Can you recycle the lumber and flip it over?
Well, now you're putting the punkies down on the bearing of the cross members, and you're just, it's just your compressed. This is all static loaded. It's not hung where the bottom edge isn't being supported. The bottom edge is your bearing plate for the support of the deck. Mm-hmm. So flipping it over really wouldn't be a fix. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just something that, as you're putting your budgets together for this year, next year, whatever, keep in mind that bridge is coming to the point where the joists will have to be addressed at some time here in the future.
Now, how much do you think it would cost to replace in the next couple of years? How much would that cost?
I never really ran any numbers on it. It's more labor intensive than it is anything else, because you got to pop all the decks and put the decks down. So you're basically building the thing twice as far as decking it. On the flip side, on deck going down, crew usually can do 100 linear feet in a day. And since we're using wood over again, we're not cutting a lot of wood, so I'm sure you can be able to do more than that. So, it's not all that terrible. It's not the longest bridge we have on an island, but it's definitely will run up some
Mm-hmm.
dollars that needs to be budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, I'll be happy to put together a number for it. I just haven't done it because I didn't know what your flavor was on it. If you was just to say, let's just wait until it becomes a situation where the joists need to be replaced, then I don't need to sit here and try to find this epoxy that I can get in a bulk versus the smaller quantities that they sell for residents work. But it's, I just wanted to bring your attention to that bridge, because on the surface, that one looks really, really good. But that one does, and that's the only one of the three that does have an underlying problem that's unseen, but it's starting to creep up.
And so the bridge on Grove Road, I'm not sure.
Grove Road is the last bridge. That one has the worst cosmetic shape there is. I don't know why. I know what the specs were for the lumber. I don't know why that just ended up being such a bad lot of lumber. There's very large knots, very loose knots in the deck boards and on the railing members. All the damaged stuff has been replaced on it within reason. I did not rebuild that bridge. I very easily could have went through and replaced every deck board on it because they're all ugly in my opinion, but I replaced what I felt was the necessary to maintain the integrity and safety of the bridge, and went from there. Wally also asked me to put a little bridge between the approach railing and the bridge railing on the Freshman's Creek or the south side of the bridge because of the settlement of the shoreline there. The approach railing has fallen away from the bridge, and so we put some 4x12s and I think a 2x6 at the bottom, and cut them on the angles and took the edges off so that if you came through, your bicycle couldn't go between the two support posts and wedge in there. I don't think it's, you would actually have to try to do it, but now it's impossible to do.
Yeah.
That railing on that one, the nuts and bolts were tight on that. But what I discovered underneath the bridge is that on the other two bridges, wherever there's a railing post, there's blocking, probably within 6 to 8 inches on either side of that post to stiffen it. Even though both the Grove Road and the Thoroughfare Bridge are made out of 4x12s, joist material, there is no blocking on the Grove Road Bridge. I don't know whether the blocking will be enough to take the wiggle out of those posts completely. I don't believe so. You just have too much of a pivot point. You're going to be able to rock them. But the reason that those are more movement to them than on the Thoroughfare Bridge is, I believe, because of lack of blocking. Lack of blocking. Blocking is what you put in between the joists to stiffen the structure.
Well, thank you so much for coming up here and telling us about this.
That's no problem. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now or in the future. Wally has my name and number, so does Dale. I have somewhat of a vested interest in. I built 2 of the 3 bridges, and that's kind of how it came to be. Because I was walking one and said, "This is starting to look kind of nasty."
Yeah. And do you remember how much we spent on the original bridges? What the cost to do those were?
The Thoroughfare Bridge, I believe, was like a $600,000 total project. But that was also your payment for the part of the bike path that was being put in at the same time. The bridge itself, I believe, was $120,000 to $140,000. The Meridian Bridge, I believe, was around a $50,000, 30 to 50. And the Grove Road, I lost that bid, so I don't know what you actually paid for it.
Gotcha.
It is what it is.
But it's probably somewhere near the Meridian one, as opposed to the Thoroughfare side.
It's probably somewhere close to Meridian because it's shorter, but you had 4x12s in there instead of 2x8 joists, so you really jumped the price up when you use those 4x12s. Those are a high ticket item.
$50K to $100. Let's put it that way. Okay,
I'm sure that someplace in the township records, those prices are there. And if you want them, I can look up 2 of them for you. I just don't know what the third one was.
Again, I want to thank you for coming, making the time to come up here and talk to us about this, because maintenance is a high concern for all of us on the commission here, and we are trying to figure out how to develop. We're developing our maintenance plan. We're trying to look forward into the future and go 1, 2, 3 years out and see what needs to be done, and try to do capital preventative maintenance.
Exactly. And that's why I brought up the joist, because there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah,
Run the life of the wood, or do something to try to save it without replacing, rebuilding the whole bridge.
And that, I was just going to say, and that being said, myself, it's hard for me to take in all of this right now. You've presented us with a lot of information, a lot of important information. So I think we're probably going to want to get together as a commission and talk about this in a little bit more detail. But I was wondering, would you be available to come back in this setting, or a study session setting, or out in the field and kind of explain some of this stuff to us if we're...
Anytime. Again, I'm an island resident. Just drop me a call and we'll meet all or anybody out there and explain what we're doing. There was one other note that in my original contract, Wally and I decided that we wasn't going to do it at this time because there could possibly be some asphalt damage. The leading board, or the first board on the boardwalks where the asphalt meets it, on 2 of the bridges. That'd be 1, 2,
Grove Road,
3,
and,
Grove Road,
and the thoroughfare.
and that thoroughfare.
Yeah.
One. And what we're doing, we'll probably do the Meridian one as well. But the first board is chewed up from the snow removal. Instead of using a brush, we've been using a blade or a snow plow on it. And as you go for asphalt to hit that wood, you're nailing it. Those need to be replaced. I would like to suggest that we coordinate that replacement whenever the asphalt is scheduled to be reseal coated. Because there will probably be some patchwork. We can cold patch it, but I'd rather have that cold patch then sealed than just have a cold patch there that would probably end up popping in time.
One of the things, Wes, that I had mentioned to the folks was the power washing being a little too zealous, and that I thought perhaps we were not sealing that bridge often enough, which may have contributed to some of those problems.
I don't know what your schedule was for that. I mean, I've seen them out there a couple of
It's
different
been every
times.
2 years, or sometimes as much as 2.5. And I was thinking that I would ask for some estimate of doing all 3 bridges on an annual basis with material of your recommendation and the low pressure clean with a chemical wash.
Right.
Soap wash.
Okay. The Meridian Bridge is in the shade so much. That can probably last a couple years. But the Grove Road and the thoroughfare, even though there is a tree line in the north end, it still gets a lot of sun. And that probably should be on a yearly basis, especially the deck because of the wear. I mean, it's wonderful the paths get used as much as they're used. And if we continue to use a blade instead of a brush to remove the snow and just the wear and tear, you need that resealed on a regular basis.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that we do own a machine that has the brush head that's utilized.
We purchased them
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, I know that's actively used on the path by Meridian School to begin with, near the open space. But I'm not sure why we're using a blade in other situations. So that's something we'll take a look at and talk with our other departments and commissions to see what we can do and see what's the cost-benefit ratio to using one technology versus the other.
Well, all due respect to the Department of Public Works, is if you have a large volume of snow, that brush isn't going to work.
Okay.
But if you have...
Well, that's the point. If there is a large volume of snow, it doesn't work like a blade does, but perhaps just taking it up to that point and then brushing later on the bridges.
Yeah.
We can figure that out. I think that you brought it to my attention, and it's a good point.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there,
How about an old-fashioned shovel? That'd be cheaper.
yeah, a lot of shoveling.
Yeah.
No.
Have to
just
worry
while
about
we-
paying overtime at that point.
Yep. Is there anything else?
Plus, I do have one question.
Yes.
First, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Your input's very valuable to us. Given that we maintain these bridges the best that we can, could you give us a rough estimate of what you feel the lifespan of these bridges would be? How much more life do we have in them?
Oh, I'd say that you have another 20 years before you have structural problems on the on any of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're all pretty much designed except for the thoroughfare with 4x6s, 6x6s or 8x8 support columns with CB brackets, which is a Simpson bracket that's you bed in concrete. It keeps the bottom of the timber off the concrete, and you can again block and remove. By having the wood off the concrete or not embedded in the concrete, you eliminate that rot joint at the concrete joint line.
Mhm.
So those are holding up, fine. The one that would be probably the most concerned would be the Meridian, because that does flood and dry. It does sit in water sometimes, but when I crawled underneath there, those posts were all looking pretty good, and that's the oldest one on that thing.
Thank you.
And the 4x12s, those are monster timber, so that's going to be a while before you have anything there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Russ.
I actually have a couple of questions. I'm sorry. We're not letting you go yet. On the Meridian Bridge, you talked about the epoxy versus the rebuild. And you said you didn't have a cost estimate for the epoxy, but do you know relatively? I mean, is the rebuild double the cost? Is it
Oh yeah, it'd be
easily
at least
double?
Yeah.
And then what? So you said if we do nothing, meaning we do nothing, then we have to rebuild it. We get 3 to 7 more years out of it.
That's the guesstimate. Yeah.
Okay. So if we do the epoxy, how many years would we get out of it?
Honestly, that bridge has been there since 94, 93. You'll have the same lifetime. It was just like having new timber again. That
Okay.
epoxy is a epoxy resin that totally saturates the wood. And since the joist right now still maintains the dimensional integrity of the timber, by using an epoxy, you're re-solidifying or those fibers, and it's becoming a solid structural member again. And you're and actually something else is going to go before those joists will go, because the epoxy resins will keep it from rotting ever again.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I have one more question
Yeah.
then, since you're talking about that. So you said that the Meridian Bridge probably cost $50,000 back in '94 or something
And
like that.
I'm just making a huge guess here, Brian.
Yeah, I guess I would just if we're trying to get a roundabout estimate of what we're talking about with the epoxy. I mean, would we think that would be around $50,000 for that in today's dollars?
No,
Or
I
mean, are we
think-
talking?
I think you're probably looking more around the lines of maybe around 10
Oh,
or less.
okay.
Yeah. I think if we might want to have Wes come back later in the year and do a walkthrough of the bridges and get a written estimate of the various options he's mentioned, so we can, one, be re-educated on some of the
Sure.
terminology, see for ourselves the need and repair of, and then two, by having a written estimate of option A, B, and C,
Mhm.
I think that will help us drive our decision as to which option we would recommend to the board. So
Mhm.
Wes, I guess I would recommend to us that we invite you back when it gets a little bit warmer, a little bit closer to
I
spring, March, or
appreciate
April
the
kind of
warmer
time
weather.
frame. Because there's obviously not much work that'll be done at this point of the year anyway. So if we waited till March, April time frame and did a walkthrough at that point, would probably make most sense to then make the recommendation to the board and then move forward with one of those options.
Yeah.
Right, that'd be fine.
Great. Put that down as a next step.
Okay,
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, sir.
okay.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during open public comment? Hearing none, we can move on to the election of the officers. So as everyone here probably knows, that annually we need to look at our officers, and the township board specifically requests that we nominate and vote in a chair. Additionally, based on our bylaws, we do have a vice chair and a secretary. So, that being said, I'd like to open the floor to anybody that might be interested in filling those roles. And I guess we could start with the chair. Is there anybody interested? Anybody that would like to make a nomination?
I'll nominate that you retain chair.
Well, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that's interested in serving as chair? Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Aaron to be by his side as the vice
Okay, but we're talking about the chair right now.
chair.
So just
No
want
mind. Back up. Keep it.
Okay. Discussion. Hearing none, I guess, can we have a vote on, I guess, myself as chair, and I have to obviously stick out on this one.
You voting for yourself?
I don't know if I can do that.
Depends on what the roll call comes up.
Gotcha. Okay. All in favor of voting myself in as vice chair? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for that support.
You meant chair, right? Not vice chair.
Yeah, chair. I'm sorry. Just thinking ahead now because she was saying vice chair. We do have the vice chair position as well. So I guess, do we have any nominations for vice chair?
You heard what I said.
Okay. Great. Get a second on that? So Jane and Rob. All in favor of voting Aaron in as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. We also have the position of secretary. So do we have any nominations for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Al.
Great. Can we get a second? Rob seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Congratulations, sir. I also want to thank Rob for your years of service as vice chair. You've been great to have along.
Oh, thank you.
The other thing I wanted to talk about before we get into old business was that I just want to let everybody know that you should have received an email as well as a letter from the township stating that they're asking for your interest in serving in the next 3 years on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. So if you are interested in doing that, which I hope all of you are, you submit that either via email or letter or call Ms. Knope and let her know that you're interested. And I know that there's some folks here that might be on the fence because it is a big commitment. If we're talking about 3 years, and some of us might be wondering if we can maintain our relentless positive action. And I borrow that. We have to give props to Governor Snyder on that, but I love that phrase. Keeping everything positive within the commission. I know that we've had a few hiccups along the way, some disagreements, but I think that we can get past them. And I know that I personally need all of you on this commission. And as we're going to see later on within this meeting, when we talk about our draft annual report, there's been many accomplishments by this commission. And we've utilized little outside resources. So, and it's based on this unique group dynamic. And each commissioner, brings something special to this. And each commissioner has used their own money to help finance our public outreach opportunities. They stayed after for meetings. We've been at Island Fest. We're dedicating a lot of time. And we have a variety of different talents. We've got artistic communication specialists, doing our videos and doing our posters, making sure that we're trying to reach out to the public as best as possible. We have great task masters and project managers that have helped us with our projects. We have visionaries who think about all these great aspects that we can do to make Groseal more walkable and bikeable. And we also have people that are filling the role as the contrarian that help keep BPAC planted firmly in reality. because we have to think about every aspect of things before we move forward. And I think most of all, I think this group works together. We employ groupthink. And sometimes we're doing that in the commission here, like publicly. Other times we're doing it in subgroups. But overall, I think we work great together. And we're not going to agree on everything always. We've seen that. But I think our team functions very well. And I think it's going to show through our accomplishments. So as that being said, I would like to basically make an affirmation to let anybody know that's on the fence, that they're wondering, do I want to consider moving forward in the future, that this commission as a whole needs them. I'm looking for a vote of confidence, basically. So, I'd like to show unity, and I'm looking for something that basically shows that we would like to keep this commission and its composition as it sits here today, if that commissioner or commissioners is interested in doing so. I'd like to open up the floor and maybe have a little bit of discussion about this.
We already have experience. We went to there and back. We think the stuff. We've been doing a lot of fun. We know what we're doing. Let's continue. Let's move on. Let's have fun. We can do it.
Any other discussions?
All set, Jane.
Is anybody interested in entertaining a specific motion that affirms what we're talking about here? I have something in mind, and I could provide this out as a suggestion, but it's merely a suggestion, and I'd like to see how everybody feels about this. I was thinking something along the lines that where BPAC is generally satisfied with its annual performance, and where BPAC is excited about its 2015 objectives, and whereas BPAC feels the composition of its commissioners plays an integral role in the performance of the commission, and whereas BPAC feels any individual commissioner performance issues can be handled internally, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission is resolved to recommend to the Township Board that all BPAC commissioners be reappointed, should they express an interest in being reappointed. Does that mean that's good?
I'm thinking so.
Got the ring, got the bell. Angels on our side here. Discussion.
No.
Decisions on chairman and vice chairman and secretaries and members of any commission are at the discretion of the Township Board. You can express your wish. Township Board will evaluate it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, sir, and wouldn't have it any other way. I just think that would be great for our fellow commissioners to know that they're appreciated, and that let the Township Board know that we feel that we can be positive in moving forward and maintaining a great relationship between each other as well as with the Township Board and all of its staff. So, is anybody interested in making a motion on some language, potentially as I presented over here as an example, or anything else?
That's something new. I'm not familiar with that.
Sure. I just read an example language of a motion that we could potentially vote on, saying that we agree with these findings.
Mr. Chairman, I would expect that any commission or any committee's members that have worked with each other for a period of time generally agree on most things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that this is a venue for that subject.
You say you don't think it is?
I don't think it's a venue for this area. I think it's you're stepping into a decision that's going to be made by the Township Board.
Mm-hmm.
Make your recommendation, express your wish if you want to be here or not. Township Board will decide.
Of course. Any other discussion on this? Okay. Do we want to vote to recommend to the township board that, based on the language that I outlined here?
You haven't had a motion or a second, right, Brian?
I know, that's what I'm asking.
How about discussion? Are you asking to make a motion on the whereas?
Yes. So, I guess, how do people feel about this? Is it something that you think that would be a great affirmation? Should we make an actual motion? Should it be seconded? Should we vote on it? So I'd like to hear either support or non-support.
Do you asking like aye, that thing?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, so, all right, but we need a motion and a second
Motion.
first before we can actually vote. So somebody has to say, I'd say, do we have a motion as the language,
Okay.
written down here? Somebody could say, so moved. And then somebody could say second. And at that point, we could vote on this.
I do the first stop.
Okay, Jane, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose?
Nay.
Okay, one opposed? Wally? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone's input on this. Moving on to old business, we'll start with our brick selling campaign. Aaron, do you have anything that you want to, talk about with the brick selling campaign as far as the number of bricks? Has there been any movement on that?
There have been no more bricks sold since the last meeting, and we won't have an opportunity to meet before I'll place the order because I think we gave everybody the February 14th deadline. So I'll contact Polar Engraving after February 14th and request that they send the final shipment. And remember again, we will probably incur a small order fee, and their rates have also gone up as of January 2015. So I can get you those numbers whenever I place the order.
Great, but you do have folks that have ordered previous to this meeting, so we will have a shipment.
Yes, we will have a shipment.
Okay.
Okay. I stopped by earlier today. We have 130 books already sold, and we have 2 waiting for money. So that's where we stand now.
How many waiting for money? I'm sorry.
We have 130 already, and 2 are waiting too.
2 are waiting.
Jane,
Okay.
do you know if they placed their orders online and Ann is just waiting for them to send the money in, or they've come to the township building?
I don't know.
Okay.
She looked in her file and she looked at the computer.
Okay. Thank you.
And I know that Jane worked hard on a new video, and a lot of us, provided some input on that. So I think if we have a moment, and if you're interested, I could play that video just so folks see that, and potentially, or if they're interested, we can buy another brick. So I'm going to start that up.
Update on BPAC brick campaign. Need a special gift for your loved one? Want to commemorate a special occasion? Consider the gift of a commemorative brick, which will be located beside the Island Roadrunner fountain across the street from the Township Hall. These bricks are part of a BPAC fundraising campaign that has helped cover the installation costs of the fountain and provide additional amenities to make this location a serene pocket park. A dedication ceremony took place where the BPAC, the Island Roadrunner, and the community celebrated this new addition to the Rodeo. Pets and people alike use the fountain and enjoy the view on the new patio bedrooms. You too can still be a part of this exciting adventure. accommodate more bricks, which can be used to provide future amenities like a garden, park bench, etc. Bricks are on sale until February 14th, 2015 via the Township Hall and the Township website. The fountain itself has been put into sheltered storage for the remainder of the season. It will be placed back in spring by our EPS department. Bricks come in two sizes, 4x8 and 8x8, $50 to $100. Graphics are not included. They make the perfect last-minute gift for Christmas, Hanukkah, or Valentine's Day. And remember, graduation is right around the corner. Help us help you make our community an even better place to live while getting a gift that will last a lifetime. Bricks are on sale until February 14th, 2015 via the Township Hall and the Township website.
Thank you.
I guess I really like that video. I think accomplishes a lot. And one thing that I'm not sure about, because I'm guilty of not watching the GITV as much as it probably should be when I'm trying to learn things about this. But do we know how often this is being played on GITV? 3 or 4.
How that? Get you the video, but if I make it into a PowerPoint, it'll be showed more often.
Really?
So I can do both versions.
Okay.
They're going to have more publicity.
It's purely up to you, but if you're interested in, I guess, doing the one slide and putting it on there, I think it could help.
I can do slides of on.
Yeah.
I do that.
But I guess, I'm just like to ask my fellow commissioners if they feel that there's anything else that we should be doing, if there's any other actions needed before our February 14th deadline.
Well, I guess I would like to just refresh my memory about this. So we originally took money out to do the installation,
Mm-hmm.
and our plan was to sell bricks, raise revenue selling bricks, and then replace that money that was borrowed against for installation. So I guess as of the 14th, we will have our deadline. We'll have placed our brick sales numbers in, and have paid for those. We should then get a revenue or a cost back on what we collected for the bricks, what we expended to pay for shipping and the bricks, and then that number versus what was the installation cost should give us whether we made our goal or not and what the difference is, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that definitely should be the case, and I think we've already accomplished that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that we met our goal and that the additional bricks, because we had the space available, was being used as the potential for adding enhancements to that site. Aaron or Wally, I know that you both have worked on that, so if you have anything else you'd like to comment, I'd
Jane
appreciate it.
commented at the last meeting that we had made that sales figure, but I'm not sure where she got the information from. I think it was from Ann. We have paid up in full.
I might have mentioned it.
Or was it you? Okay.
Well, I mentioned it a while back, and this was based on the original installation cost estimate. I never saw any final numbers, but it seemed like we should have had plenty of bricks to pay for it. But I haven't seen hard numbers compared side by side.
So at next month's meeting, we should be able to have hard numbers to be pulled so that we would know what our plus or minus is, and then we can determine perhaps what we should utilize the excess and if it's for another type of project, right?
Now I have a question. Based on what we have about half already filled, and we have a few more orders to do. There'll be a little gap left. Are you going to have temporary blank one just to fill up the square? And two, even though we have a deadline on February 14th, Happy Valentine's, Would people have an option? They people move in July, they move to the island. Oh, I want to do it. Do they have an option to order one later, as long as you have enough minimum?
I
to
thought
order
what
a
we were
package?
going to do was we were going to fill whatever the space was at that time with bricks to be done with this, because to take one brick out or leave a space for bricks very difficult and costly to do. So I thought we were going to
Okay.
try to wrap this up this spring. Is that not? Is that? That was my understanding.
I was under that impression. I think it would be great to honor everybody's wishes if they want to add a brick later on, but I don't know that we would get any benefit out of it. It would be out of our pocket. And if that's something we want to do,
Yeah.
then maybe we should talk about it. But I don't think it'll offer any benefit to us otherwise.
So-
When this project was built, you are correct. We gave a deadline. We said we would finish where we were at, and that would probably mean taking a couple of blank bricks to finish a given row. But the structure itself that surrounds it, the wooden structure, will be a wooden structure that, should someone change their mind and want to buy 100 bricks, I could figure out a way to make it bigger. We're okay the way we are. It'll be a nice rectangle when it's done.
So that being said, if we buy blank bricks to fill that in, we haven't figured that cost out yet, because that's going to come out of whatever our profit is.
That would be, what is that, about $18 a brick, if I remember right, Eric? An unengraved blank?
I think that sounds. I don't know. I don't have the figure for an unengraved blank.
We should be able to just pick those up somewhere
That's
else for
what I'm thinking.
a couple bucks
We
a
might.
brick.
We
I wouldn't
probably
be-
shouldn't have to
yeah.
even order that through Fuller Engraving.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think we could go to Home Depot or someplace and find something that would be
Yeah.
similar in color that we should be able to plug and play.
Now, you ask, is there anything else we can push it? I'm willing to do a booth there at Kroger. You can do it maybe every other weekend until
You got 2 weeks.
we got 2 weeks.
I think we're done.
I can do
I
it
think
Saturday
we're-
if I can get permission.
I'm
I
sorry.
can do it on Saturday, this Saturday, if I can get permission. No, pass our flowers if you're interested. It's our last chance.
I mean, I think our commission's pretty tired, like with the brick selling.
Well, I think if you, whatever you want to do up until the 14th is fine. I think that was our line in the sand, and I think at that point, whatever we have is whatever we have. And we close the door on this as far as the sales go. That would be my recommendation.
So, yeah, I mean, if you'd like to do it,
Sure.
more,
I'll
you know,
stop at
thank
the
you.
Kroger and get permission to do it Saturday. If you
Okay.
want to tag along, be nice. I'll email you, let you know what I plan to do.
Well, thank you, Jane. And moving on, I just have a just quick note asking about the status on the follow-up with Mr. Gray, our township ordinance officer. You know, at past meetings, we said that we'd check in on in January. So this is just a check-in. I'm not looking for anything, but if we do have more information, that's great. Wally, do you have anything that you might be able to tell us about that?
Not at all.
Okay. Do you have any advice on when we should check in again?
As to when we would attempt to use ordinances to build sidewalks?
That as well as other ordinances in general. I know that you said that he was very busy with some of the blight ordinance work.
The township board has tasked him with one duty, and that's blight. And he's still on that task. I don't know when that will end, but I would just anticipate that there's got to be a backlog of a million things that he's got to catch up on after they release him from blight prison. Right? And he has been, he's been incarcerated. He's been one duty and one duty only. So I can't give you a better answer than that. I think you may want to rethink your thoughts about the sidewalks in general, and then perhaps we can ask about it there. But it's not an ordinance officer's duty to build or push people to build sidewalks. That's a township duty.
Okay, well, we can talk about this as we're moving forward with our non-motorized plan, but I guess for now we'll table this.
Good move.
Last item under old business is, about Bike to School Day. I know it's something that we've done in the past. We entertained the notion of doing it this year. Erin, is there anything that you'd like to report on as far as Bike to School?
I will be contacting the superintendent soon because whenever I spoke with the principals in the past, they said that everything had to go through the superintendent. So I will contact his office first and make sure it's okay, because if you remember, we did not do a walk to school day because of the changes at Park Lane and an increase in traffic, and he was concerned about the safety. So hopefully, now that it's spring and the buses and cars and everything have kind of figured out their schedules, we'll be able to do that. So I will talk to him first and then get back to everybody. But I'm wondering if I could have help talking to some of the principals. It's really hard for me because I don't have kids in the school system. They don't really know my name. So I know there are a few of you who do have kids at various schools. Maybe if you have a good relationship with the principals, you could talk to them. I do have a neighbor who is a teacher at Meridian, and she said she would be helpful. So I can talk to her and hopefully have an avenue into Meridian. But otherwise, I don't feel that the principals really are that receptive, and I'd like them to have someone that they can talk to candidly and even tell them, what went well last year, what didn't. Mm-hmm. If they hated the event last year, why? And is there something we could do? So I'll contact the superintendent first, and then I'll probably be reaching out to you to see if you could help me get in contact with the principals.
Great.
If he says it's okay.
I'd be happy to help. I've got kids in the school system, so that'll work. But I was just wondering, I know we do have a school board representative in the audience with us tonight. And, Kali, I'm not sure if you're interested in commenting on that or, talking to us, about potential relationships between BPAC and the rest of the school board and the schools.
I'm just sitting here, figuring this out, but I did
Would you mind coming up to the mic just that way folks at home can hear you?
figured out what you were doing. Now, I just heard informally that it is the PAT that organizes the walk to school rather than the teacher, but like it's the PAT that got the volunteers that get everyone organized to do that. So that might be another resource, and I can find out more. I can when I go to the board meeting, I can mention that you're interested. What is it, in a bike to school day or walk to school day?
It's a bike to school day. Do you mind if I give you a little bit of background? I mean, you probably already know this, but I think the Safe Routes to School program,
yes,
it's a little bit sensitive. So for a while, the schools, I don't think, really wanted to take it over. But I was working with a few people that I know pretty well on the PAT, and they helped me last year. But I'm sensitive to how the principals feel about this, so I don't want to come from either above them or underneath them and say this is what you're going to do. I would like for them to be on board too.
Sure. I don't have any more information than that. That's all I can tell you. And like I said, I'm here to kind of listen and learn. And I've been off the school board for 4 years, so I'm not really in the loop. We've just had one meeting, so I really can't give you any more information. But, I will keep my ear, and if I hear anything, if I can be of any help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
One of the reasons that I had a conversation with colleague was that it seemed as though we wanted the, quote, the school board or the school or the principal to assist us in making a program that the Bike Path Advisory Committee and the school could work together on. And I kept getting the feeling that it was a group of us that wants to talk to a group of them, but we don't know who to talk to. And I've known Kali for a while, a little bit, and my wife and Kali know each other better than I do, but I picked up the phone one day and kind of explained that position. And that's the reason that she did come today. So we don't want to corral her or drive her into any corners tonight, but it was an idea that if Kali learned the names of the people on this committee, and we knew you, we would at least know one person on the school board better than that group. All right?
I'm also on the board of the Iowa Road Runners.
And that's I'm getting to that. I thought that there was a lot of synergy there. So, she said, I love those bike paths. I run them all the time, and we know that. But I didn't realize that she was on the Island Road Runners until she told me. A lot of interesting.
I'm secretary of the Island Road Runners.
Good. We will appreciate having a name and association with a name, and let's see where we could develop this to. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions about Bike to School Day in general?
Run it again.
Good question.
I was thinking on the way here that I should have gotten the exact date. I think last year it was May 7th or May 8th. It's usually the first or second week in May. I will look it up right now and get back to you before the end of the meeting.
That's a bike or walk?
Bike to school.
Bike.
And for those of you at home or not know, there's the Safe Routes to School program puts on 2 events per year that are considered, national days for either walking or biking. In the fall of each year, generally it's in October, there's an event called Walk to School Day. They pick a specific day, and all of the schools that are interested in participating all over the country, have their kids walk to school, and it's supposed to be one of these energizing events that gets kids, talking about walking to school, and basically serves as a catalyst for future programs that you might be able to incorporate throughout the school year. Additionally, there's another event called Bike to School Day, which happens in May, which coordinates more with the transportation month, as well as there's quite a few other bicycle-related events happening within May, a lot of times within the same week. So there's Bike to School Day, there's also Bike to Work Day, there's National Bike Week, as well as locally we have the North American International Bicycle Convention. So that there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's nice to actually participate in these national days, or these days that are much larger, because we can get great press and build up excitement about the possibilities.
It's May 6th, but I will need to double check with. May 6th is the national day, but again, I'll need to talk to the superintendent and probably check the school schedule, because if you recall, Walk to School Day 2 years ago, there was some testing, and teachers weren't comfortable with having the day during that day, so we want to make sure that we're not, encroaching on some other date, an important date that the schools have.
Now, I believe it here on Wednesday. I will be able to. I can help you with videos and flyers and all that dirty work.
Okay,
I'll help you
because
with
we
that.
we can make it whatever day we want. If it's the national day, it's nice just because there's a lot of hype around it,
prefer-
but we can make it whatever day we want.
Great.
No.
Okay, anything else on old business? I'd like to move forward to new business. We have a guest in the audience tonight, Mr. Dale Ream, and he's here to talk with us about the high school and middle school path and some of the other questions that we had regarding procedures about increasing communications and I guess just best practices in general. So Dale, if you're interested in coming on up and
Good evening. You asked if I was interested. Do I have a choice?
you came.
No.
Dale Ream, Township Manager. Thank you for the invite. I guess I want to start out with, you guys got me in trouble already. I told my wife I'd be home by 8:30.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Did you say what day?
Thanks. I know that I've had a few phone conversations with Trustee Posiask, with Chairman Pollack. I had a brief meeting with Rob in early December. I think that was the 8th or 9th or something like that. And I know there's been a lot of discussion at the commission level about the township's roles and responsibilities with what we call the school path, which is the path between the high school that originates at the parking lot and goes to the northeast over to the administration building. It goes through the sports fields. And some of the questions I had, I was given a a schedule. I was going to try to get this document printed out, and I was having problems with the format, and I ended up getting a new computer. I was one of the last people with the 98s, and maybe I'm just doing something wrong, but so I was able to print, and I went through, and I have answers for these questions, and I know you as a commission reviewed that at one of your previous meetings. So some of the items I don't know the answer, and I'll explain to you why. And some of the other things, I guess, are policy decisions. They're issues that, sure we can do this. I know when Rob and I discussed some of these items, we were trying to figure, well, it would make good business sense, but no, we don't do this. And there's obviously some history behind it, so I'll try to touch on all those items.
Okay. Do you have any handouts for us?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I just have that list with my notes on it.
What I'm doing is just passing out the original questions, so that way our commissioners,
Right, that's the list that you, as a group, prepared, is what I'm going off of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So question 1, when were the school paths originally constructed? Actually, that was done in 2 phases, 1997 and 2000. And I'm not sure which one was done first, the north half or the south half. That was funded by community development block grant monies. They were ADA path improvements, which is one of the eligibility criteria for the block grant funds. And the cost, in 1997, that segment cost $15,903, and the 2000 improvement cost $34,701. And this grant was issued to the township. And what was the grant amount? The total, those two numbers, the 15,000 and the 34,000. Those were the totals. And the construction management was handled by the township. When it came to maintenance, what other maintenance have we done on that path? Have we? Yes. That's a homework assignment that's going to take a lot of additional research and go back through a lot of the old contracts. So I'm not prepared to answer item number 3 for maintenance tonight. But definitely, yes, we have. It was, I know they've done crack sealing, we've done seal coating, things of that nature. Under the current maintenance, who manages the mowing and who manages the snow removal, and that's the school. The next item, does the school have the right to exclude usage of the path for any reason or any times? My answer is a question mark. I don't want to speak for the school, and I don't know what their policies are. If necessary, we could have more communications with them. And the next item, does the school have the right to deny any signs or markings on the path? Again, I answer that with a question mark. I don't know that it's the school policy. So what it really got down to, and I know it's something that I was kind of twisted my head a little bit, is the next item. Is there a maintenance agreement in place? And my initial thought was, probably not. I looked, I went back through minutes, Carol researched. The answer is no. We don't have a formal agreement. And I just know that that's the piece of history, just how I explained it to you. The board approved the project as a block grant. That block grant process is an annual process where we hold public hearings, and the board approves a resolution, and that recommendation goes on to Wayne County, and if it's an eligible project, they'll fund it for us. So they did. And what type of agreement should we have? What type of agreement works best? Again, these are question marks. These are policy decisions. I know as an administrator, sometimes a simple handshake works best. I would say what I have to go, the agreement in this instance is not a formal agreement. It's history, and it's just the fact that the township chose to put resources into improvement on the school property. And I don't know exactly when we first started maintenance and took care of it, or the history behind that. I just know that since I've been township manager, I know there were times prior to that that we have. And there have been moments where the school folks have actually called and said, hey, we see the contractors doing work here. Is this something that you can address, or whatever the case may be? And they've come to us. And I don't believe with this past repair that in 2013, and I'll get to the timeline in a second, I don't believe that they had that on their radar. But after the winter of 2014, I did get a call, but I knew it was already on our radar. So, was there a formal or informal consensus of the board when they approved the work? Okay, the board gave a formal contract award in 2013. And the contract was to Paybex, and it was a unit price contract that had seal coating, crack sealing, overlay, grind and repair. There were a handful of other types of those items. Removal, replace pieces, patches, things of that nature. So that was all part of a unit contract price. And the next question was, do the level of approvals vary based on the funding source or the type of project? No. When we do a contract award, this is the amount that we do. The items in an amount, we might have X amount feet of crack sealing. But when they get out in the field, things adjust a little bit. Some of the numbers go up, some of the numbers go down. And as we know, the contractor was not able to complete everything in 2013, and we had to have him come back and finish up in early 2014 after that rough winter. So some of those things that didn't get addressed needed a little extra attention, which was unfortunate. The other question next, what authority does the township believe justifies a gift to another governing body? I answer this with a question mark. In 1997, when the township township board approved this project, I don't know if they look at it as a gift. I think that public's public. It's a township entity. It is serving our township residents, and the recreation department, for instance, has always partnered with the schools in many, many ways, and that's just been the, I guess, history of cooperation that we've had with the school and that they've had with us, and I think that's proven to be successful. And what do we need to do to get an agreement in place? That's, again, a policy decision. If that's something that the township board would ask me to research and take forward to the schools, I certainly can and would be willing to do that. On the current path repair, the one that was completed in 14, who brought the need for the repair forward? The unit price contract was put together from the 2013 report that I know Raines put together. I know there have been a handful of residents, two residents have been to board meetings asking about the school path, and that was last year in 14. And were the school representatives engaged with the repair? No, I had a call late last summer, and like I said, it was already on our radar. And who were the representatives from the township engaged in the repair? Engineering, myself, Trustee Posey asked. And why were the cost estimates done without asking BPAC? It was my understanding that the 2013 report had these unit prices in it, and that Rains, when they did the original walkthrough, had this segment of the path on its target. And clearly, I know by talking to Rob and Brian that some of you were not aware that that was even something that was under your umbrella. I'm sorry, I don't know how to speak to that. But my conversations that I've had with Trustee Posiask, and he's confirmed that it has been on your radar as far as 2013. Is that correct? And
That's correct.
To what extent and how much you guys understood that history, I can't speak to that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that Brian and I talked about was, how can we improve communications? Well, there's a lot of different ways we can do that, but like tonight, for instance, is a good start. The bike path subcommittee of the DPS, which was your guys' predecessor, is that a good way to explain it? Mm-hmm. Had the full support and staffing of the entire DPS staff. When we put the BPAC together, it was, well, what department will this be? Well, we'll all help out, okay? I get involved with some things, Lorinda helps with some things, and I think there's some fragmentation there that is, we're still kind of learning our ways. You guys have been around for 2.5 years, I think. Is that correct?
Just about 3.
3? Okay. So, there's just, again, some history, not to bore you, but I agree on the communication aspect. Who did the actual work? That was Campo Brothers. I asked Campo, who was doing work on Horse Mill in the north end, to give us a price because in 2014, the original contractor was behind their schedule and they weren't guaranteeing that they could get this thing done in 2014. So I had Campo take a look at it, and he gave us a price, and it was very similar. He suggested a couple different ways to address some of the different areas. So we were actually able to get more of the path done, quite a bit more for just a little bit more in cost. So reviewing that with the engineer felt that was the best way to go. So, and when was that started? It was in October of last year, and it was completed in October of last year. And I know I did a walkthrough with the engineer, and then I did a sign-off in November of last year when the bill was paid. It's funny, Rob and I talked quite a bit. The next section is about safety situations. And I didn't put any specific answers to these questions, but I kind of live in a sense that's kind of my Murphy's Law. When people start asking questions and people were coming to board meetings in 14, they're like, when are you ever going to do this? Is this going to get done? Well, I knew that it was a need of maintenance. So, it's kind of, when you talk about safety, it's common sense. You know something's out there. You want to make sure it's on your radar. And as long as you're reasonably moving toward getting things addressed, then you're comfortable from a liability standpoint. All of the millage information, I did not bring that. Carol has a very thick package of information that I will get to you guys. but I did not bring that tonight. And regarding the procedures on communication, really what I found as township manager and before that when I was community development director, the best way to handle communication with any group, I mean, Township of Grosse Ile is wonderful government by committee. We have 140 volunteers on many, many different committees and commissions. And the way that it works the best is being active. But key points, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Trustee, myself, or department manager, that key communication is right there. That's just me being an administrator suggesting that we are the point of contact. The information goes through us. I don't mind talking to Rob, Aaron, Al, or Roger anytime. I don't have a problem with that. I don't want to not talk to all the volunteers because you put a lot of hard time and work and effort together. But I think it also makes sense that we have a point of contact, or if you're working on a specific project, let's say Al misses a meeting, so you put him in charge of something, and he's the point of contact, then that's your responsibility. And communicate that in all the directions too, so we always have a point. And I did not ask any questions for the school. I know the last items were, is there an agreement moving forward? The answer to that I know is no. So, but, and those were the responses. Is there any other history or background or things that you're unclear on, or and as far as how we want to move forward in the future to make sure there's not confusion? And clearly you understand that some of the commission members felt like this was something that you were unaware of and felt like this was something that was not part of your responsibility. I apologize if I didn't communicate better to the group, but it definitely, I strongly believe it's our responsibility, and I don't object to the thought of researching with the schools and having a formal agreement as well. So, are there any questions?
Sure, there's going to be questions, but first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming out here and doing this. We greatly appreciate it, and it's a great first step, like you're saying, about increasing the communications. And I'd like to just say right off the bat, I think one of the best things would be is if you and I, as well as Trustee Posiak, be CC'd on anything that relates to these projects. There's stuff that I know that's going on. There's stuff that Wally knows that's going on. There's things that you know. But when this commission was created, I sold it as a one-stop shop for all things related to bicycle and pedestrian travel. Not everything related to bicycle and pedestrian travel would be specifically under our purview, but we'd get the answers to folks. If it wasn't under our purview, we'd find out who you're to contact. So based on that, we're just trying to make sure that we're always in the loop on what's going on with that stuff. So if you know of things that you might be doing that's not related to our commission, I don't mind getting 1,000 emails or whatever. If you want to CC me on that stuff, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I think that would be a great first step to increasing the communications. And
Certainly.
I know that there's a lot of questions about the history. We're all trying to sort that out, and I think that again, there's no ill will on anybody's part on this. It's just that we're trying to understand the context for everything and how to best move forward, make sure that we're doing everything by the book and by procedure. So that's why when we ask about these procedures and stuff, we're trying to find out about context. So I hope you're not taking it personally.
No, not at all. I completely understand. I know that whenever you're dealing with pieces of history, I'm unfortunately becoming a piece of history.
Becoming?
Becoming? Well, I've only been with the township for 23 years now. So, I guess that makes me part of it, huh?
Middle age.
So I'm glad to...
When he's done here,
Glad to share some of those things.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
I guess we'll go start with Roger over here, but each person will have a turn to ask a few questions.
Unfortunately, I have a hard stop. I have a sick kid at home, and I have to get him to bed fairly soon, so I may have to depart before this is all done. So just want to express my apologies for that. Just going forward, I have had history with this going back from when I served 2 terms on the board. 2 terms I've been off, and then I've recently got back into this in the last year. And first of all, the Community Development Block Grant. I was there when Andy Nordstrom wrote the original grant request. So he would write grants for both the school district and for us when he was our intern, when he worked for you. If you remember correctly, he was really good at it. So if I remember right, I remember this is one of a bunch of ones he did in that 99-2000 time frame for the last one that was there. How that works, though, is that those funds are conduited through the township to the school. So it was never left as a township asset from a accounting perspective. It was transferred back to the school district, if I'm not mistaken.
I know from our finance department, we have them listed on our asset list.
So we are ownership of bike paths on property that's
They're
not ours.
listed under the grant section. Yes, sir.
Okay. That introduces a real set of interesting liabilities if someone gets hurt on those paths.
Oh, certainly.
And that's why I think you really need to have an agreement in place for that going forward. The other thing we didn't talk about here, if anybody's watching this is $35,000. This wasn't $3,000. This wasn't $10,000. This wasn't even $15,000. This was more than 65-70% of the cost of the original path that we're talking about here. That really never had as far as I've been able to see, the original 2013 contract never listed scope of anything, did it? It just was linear feet,
There are
unit prices.
Unit prices.
But there's no scope listed of where that could be used for.
I believe the original, the 2013 contract was awarded for $120-some thousand.
It was a big.
I think it was what the total was.
And was there like a number for that contract? Was it like something like GI 578?
It was, I don't know, but Raines always numbers those.
Yeah.
I think the original contractor, they spent it was under $100,000, and I think it was somewhere around 5% total after this repaired school with the compo segment. It was like, I think the total was a little over 130. So I think it was maybe 5% over what we originally had it.
But that contract was with a different vendor, and what I don't understand is how that contract that was issued to Pavex somehow was moved to Compo.
Well, what we did in this instance, and we've done in the past, when we have an open contract with another contractor, we'll get prices from them, and in essence, we'll charge it to whatever project we're doing, but we're using their contract and their prices for, in this case,
that wouldn't
the
trigger
horse.
an opportunity for a competitive bid or an analysis or a visibility by the officials, the elected officials, when that substantial of a change in the financials and the ability to deliver would. I mean, I understand $10,000, I'd understand, but $35,000 is a substantial portion of the BPAC maintenance budget to a point now we're already talking about going back out for another millage, right? I think that, again, and then the other part was, I was relatively new to the commission here, and I was asked, I think, at an open meeting, like the first meeting or second meeting I was at, what the commission, and I think the liaison asked what our thoughts were about the scope of it, including the school path. And I told him, well, the history that I remember well from this, was the long-standing debate, was there was a sign that said no bicycles, prominently pointed at the very start of the trailhead near the high school tennis courts. I did go back and look. It's since been painted over. That no bicycles thing has been painted over, but the other sign is still there. But this has been a discussion item for a long time, whether this is Whether
recall
this,
that.
well, this goes back to Jack Delphi and all company way back, going back
I don't
10 plus
recall
years,
the
10
old
plus years
bikes.
now. So, but the question was, we were asked as a commission, what we thought about paving this? And I know I was fairly vocal in saying there needs to be a clear division or a set of agreements put in place where we know that this is official, like access, things like that people be able to use it 24/7 like anything else. Who can exclude people from it if it's something that taxpayers have paid to repair, right? And I think Wally took that back, and then the next thing I heard is being paved, and okay. And I know that's the board's prerogative. The board can do whatever the board wants to do. But I kind of feel like I was in a position as a commissioner where I was asked like by my child, like a child, for permission to do something, and when I didn't enunciate what was expected or wanted, the input was a little bit less than important at that point. So,
Well,
and I understand that,
Sure,
and I know things are going. So,
and if you feel that way, I want to make sure that I can do whatever I can so stuff like that doesn't happen in the future.
it's a big expenditure. I know there's a discretionary amount. So,
But
that's all I
there's
got.
a lot of time and effort and volunteer hours that you guys put into this. So if you don't feel like you're being part of it, then I want to do everything I can to make sure that you are.
I think
That's it for me. Thanks.
I just have one follow-up question based on some of the things that Roger was talking about to begin with. And I know you keep referring to this this 2013 maintenance projects that was approved, and so it's like I've been going through the meeting minutes trying to find any mention specifically about the school path, and I couldn't find anything other than in 2013 in 2 occasions. But there's been some folks saying that this was approved over 2 years ago, and it was part of like the original maintenance projects. And I did find a sheet that was part of our handouts, and I believe it's from Rains, and it's called GI 578, and it itemizes the paths that we were looking at. And maybe it's just a summary and something was left off. I don't know, but it basically lists out the paths that were going to be under maintenance work, and it said South Point. There's going to be some removal and replacement, 60 square yards of settling. It's actually got a cost breakdown. So everything for South Point is like 7,400. You can go down the list, and there's the Grow Road section, the Meridian and a bunch of Meridian sections. What's missing, that there's no mention at all about the high school path, the school path. And so, again, perhaps it's something that was left off this summary piece. So, we thought we were seeing the whole picture, and we weren't.
My understanding was that the units that were listed in the Rains 2013 report included the school segment. I just have that information from talking to Trustee Posiask and talking to Rains.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they communicated that to you or how they put it on their lists. And
Would it be possible to get a copy of that the 2013 unit pricing
Yeah.
contract in detail that they would have?
I can get additional detail from the engineer, certainly. Find out.
It'd be nice to have a copy of that so we could see that.
Okay.
Now, you're talking about the unit prices. Is it general for a general customer? This is how much it costs as a unit, or was it focused on bike trails and school?
Yeah, generally what they do, Jane, is they will go out, measure everything, and they'll come up with, we have pavement repair in this amount. It could be square yards. We have crack sealing, it could be this many feet. We could have seal coating, it could be this many square yards. And then when they actually start doing the work, that number can change because, well, let's add this, or the contractor will look at this crack and say, you better cut this out and go further here. And so there's some flexibility. It's not always that exact when you do a unit price contract.
So it's possible maybe when they did the estimate, maybe we assumed that they know what we're talking about. Like, pavement. In their mind, go around. In our mind, we're thinking bike path. So maybe the assumption.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on Rob's question, the breakdown in detail of what Rain's put together, I can get all that.
Yeah, I think that will clear up a lot of things right there.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I guess we'll go back to Alan. You were next as far as the number. If you have any questions.
I don't. I generally just have a statement here that this is quite quite a big chunk of our maintenance funds. I just find it almost impossible that we didn't have any work. I didn't personally have any working knowledge of this. I feel like we've been bypassed on this. I know that we can be bypassed. That the township board doesn't have to consider what we say, but I feel like we've been bypassed and we didn't even have an opportunity to have input on this. It upsets me because we spent a lot of time, a lot of our own time here, and I have to question whether it's worth it. If big projects come up and we don't have insight or oversight on them and input on it, why are we really even here? I feel like we're wasting our time at times when something this big comes up, and I personally didn't have any oversight on it. So I really have to question, our involvement in these projects. So that's where I sit right now, and that's what I take from all this. I just feel like if the Bike and Pedestrian Commission doesn't have any oversight or for just recommendation, why are we really here? So with that being said, that's the one thing that I take from all this, and it's not really a question; it's just a statement on my part. So,
thanks for your comments on that. Mm-hmm. I guess I just want to reiterate: we're not trying to do a tongue lashing here. We're not trying to, we're trying to get past this, but understand where we're coming from. That, as Alice said, we are investing a lot of time in this, and moving forward, we're trying to develop a non-motorized plan that's going to talk about what projects we move forward. I've mentioned already before about a maintenance schedule, and we're doing this so that way we can sell the community a vision, which we're planning to include them in on, and so that way, we can go out and ask for new funds for new projects or for the maintenance of projects, the maintenance of bridges. And so if we're going to be spending all this time on developing these plans, and I can tell you that, if you have a consultant come in here and do a non-motorized plan, it's anywhere between at least, $30,000 to $100,000. So, all of our time here, invested together, we're saving the township, considerable chunk of change, and we're doing that not for glory. We're not doing it to get ahead. We're doing it because we think it's right. That we're trying to move ahead with improving walkability and bikeability on the island. So, when we feel that we might be getting bypassed, it really hurts. And as Al said, you have to question, does it make sense for us to move forward? And we're trying to get past that so that way we can get to this plan. But again, if it's not going to be followed, what's the point in doing it? So, again, as we're going around and giving these questions, I just want to give you some perspectives and context of where it's coming from. Yeah?
I would say I agree with a little bit of what everybody was saying. I think early on, when we were first started, the communication was better, I think in large part to Gary Bailey, because I remember, I'm looking at Brian's screen right now, and I had the breakdown of all the proposed work, and Gary would go and walk all the paths. He had pictures of every single bird bath, and he'd be in those meetings, and then he would send us a zillion emails, and I hope to get to some of them, but he would over communicate because he was on our commission, and so he would he had a vested interest. And I think now it's hard because given our current makeup of volunteers, we don't have anybody who's sticking their nose into those meetings. So I would ask if we could just have a little more communication, because again, I understand that the township needs to do things that they need to do. The board might need to push something through. But I guess what most of us are asking, we would like to have an opportunity to recommend things. But if that's not possible, just keep us in the loop. I was one of the ones, too, who was kind of caught off guard. I was writing down the path when it was completely turned over to the Halloween parade with my family, and I kind of looked at my husband and I said, "Oh, look, the school's fixing the path," and that was not the case. And then to find out that it was our funds that were fixing the path, I'm glad it's fixed, but I just felt a little sheepish because I didn't even know. So maybe if we could, I think you have a great plan going forward, just communicating with Wally and Brian, and they'll make sure that the information's funneled down to us. And that sounds great to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Rob, your turn.
Dale, I know you're on problems you mentioned with putting the information in and getting a copy of your answers, but I'm hoping that since you have your answers on a spreadsheet of some sort, that you can get that fixed and send that to us electronically so we can have the document for historical purposes.
Not a problem.
I think there's some areas in here that we glossed over, and I think one of the things that we talked about already was providing that contract that would answer a lot of questions. This document serves multiple purposes. One, especially by getting it electronically where we can disseminate this and store it, it will help us understand where some of these questions and some of the history that you've got stored up in 23 years of service here on the island or whatever. But some other things that it kind of showed me as I combined all the questions that folks had sent me over this, is there some areas of risk that we were identified that I think needs to be bubbled up to the top to maybe get addressed, with the fact that we're maintaining a path that is on the property of the school, and as was mentioned earlier, if somebody slips and falls on that, how we're liable, and if we maybe should have some agreements in place that would exclude us from anything like that, or working agreements on future maintenance and expectations of, so 5 years down the road, God forbid that we have to do this again in 5 years, but the path needs to be resealed or whatever. There might be an opportunity for us to do some cost sharing and things like that, because we've bit the bullet and done most of the work on that thing, but it really is on school property, and there should be a little bit of shared ownership perhaps. So that's some things that should bubble to the top. So I think some of those things bubble to the top. Also, one of the things that I think this pointed out was communication planning and how we need to take some time as a commission and step back and review our current communication plan with you and Wally and the board and see where there's gaps on that, and then come up with recommendations to enhance those opportunities so that we minimize the risk of not communicating things like this in the future that created a lot of issues here, where we could be spending this time and energy looking towards planning on events in 2015 instead of having to come back and maybe re-baseline our expectations. So I think this document can serve multiple purposes and help us move forward in multiple ways. The communication of risk assessments, documentation on the things that we know and we don't know, and clarifying some things that we've made assumptions. I think you've heard from the commission that for the most part, many of us were caught off guard by that. And as was mentioned, the $35,000 that it was used to maintain that, I don't know if that was a bargain or not a bargain, but I know that it was not anticipated by this group. And without being able to be aware of these kind of expenditures, I'm not sure that I could go to the citizens of Grosse Ile and ask for another millage until we've closed these gaps and improved our communication so that we're aware of these things, because I feel that it's my tax dollars along with my neighbors. And again, I don't get the final vote to say, yeah, spend it or don't. But I think it is the understanding of this group here, and I think many of the people on the island, that we at least are aware of those expenditures and are making recommendations. And I think that misstep is something that needs to be locked down a little bit before we move forward with looking at future millages and expenditures. So,
I guess I just want to add one thing about the costs. It's hard to know the unit prices specific to this segment, that segment, and so on. So overall, the contract, the maintenance contract, I believe, was $123,000 and some change or something like that. So we didn't go, 30,000 over. It was, I think it was $7,000
Right,
more,
but
but
I
we got a lot more work done, so.
But I think we all were getting the expenditures coming out of that account, and I don't believe because none of us knew that this school path was going to be done, thought that the balance that we had in September was what we were going to really have to maintain throughout the winter. So that 35,000 hit was kind of a surprise because we didn't know it was in process. That's where the gap lies.
Okay, because of the original.
Right. We
Taking
thought
out the
we thought we were doing real good
the
because
original project price. Okay,
yeah,
I
because
see
we were
what
looking
you're
at that bottom line of 200,000 and change that we had in the account, and we're going, oh, we've got this to maintain us for X number of, and then all of a sudden it dropped 35,000. We're like, whoa.
Okay.
So
And what was interesting was, we asked for the fund balance, and so I got a information over the phone from Ann in October, and she said the fund balance, and then she said, oh yeah, I'm going to get you some formal documents for your November meeting, and so we just figured that it was going to be very similar, and so when we got that formal document, that's when we saw this line item, our balance was so much farther down. That was the first that we had heard about the high school the school path since it was brought up, I think, in like May earlier that year, where it just said that this was a potential cost estimate. We're exploring opportunities for funding it. So there's no vote ever taken on it. So we're just very surprised to see that expenditure on that.
Okay.
That being said, Wally, it's your turn to ask any questions that you might have, sir.
I've answered these questions several times before, so I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of it. Just a couple comments. Number one, I keep hearing, we didn't know about it, we didn't know about it, we didn't know about it. But we knew about it. We just forgot about it. I think that's a better answer. There was so much attention to Horse Mill, so much attention to the gas station, and so much attention to the rest of the bike paths, that particular path was kind of in the background, number one. Number two, the use of the funds was based, and the estimate for this was based upon gathering information on a walkthrough done by our engineering company. And that walkthrough included marking up all of the bike paths in all of the areas. And that was marked up with the rest of them. Third point, the path in 2012 and 13 may have been starting to deteriorate. But after the last winter, I'm sure that was easily a reason for doubling its repairs, if you remember what we saw. When you combine that with a contractor that was unable to fulfill our needs, in October of this last year, the decision was made to finish the repairs with Compo, rather than let that path go further. And that path was a dangerous path last October, but it's no longer dangerous.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. And I just would like to ask one favor of you. You keep mentioning that it wasn't that it was never said, but it was forgotten about. And clearly from this commission, if we forgot about it, then all of us forgot about it. So, I mean, and I've really been looking to try and find some sort of document that showed that we were aware of this. And please bring it forward to us, and I will drop my statements. I won't talk about it anymore. And I personally, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to get past this. So I want you to know that, and Mr. Raymond, I want you to know that we're trying to move forward on this. But when statements are made that we did know about it, and at least based on the testimony here, and me looking through the notes, we didn't know about it except for two occasions. The first time, it was brought up in public comment, and if you look at the minutes, I believe it's actually you that said that it was not part of the current system, and that we were going to explore opportunities for funding it, which we totally agreed with. Like, let's look at it the same way that we...
Might I correct that? I said it might not be a part of our system, not it was not.
Okay, I'm just reading the minutes, and it is what it is there. there's no, I don't think there's a video to go back to look at. But I'm not trying to attack it. Just say, please bring that information to me, and I will, I'll be happy to to drop talking about that. But it just, again, if you say it was just forgotten about, I'd rest better knowing that it was forgotten about. And as far as, I think it just goes back to communications. We need to get all this information to us. So moving forward, I think it's going to be great that anything that you're talking about with the bike paths to Dale or with the township board, CC me. I do the same thing to you, and Dale can do that for us. I think it's a great plan moving forward. Jane, do you have anything else that you'd like to add to the discussion?
Kind of in general, was saying that she noticed that not enough communication. I agree because I sent out a lot. You probably noticed. Very few people responded. Others. Okay, but I appreciate more feedback too. Keep flooding the emails. I love emails. I'll have to delete them. Also about forgot. Yes, we heard. It's possible we mentioned bike trail. Oh, okay. But nothing specific. It's more like, oh, the sun is up. Oh, okay. Not the sun's up there. It's 3 million miles away. General. Maybe that's why we didn't put in our mind. Other than that, I'm fine.
Great. So, I guess the consensus is, again, we'll work on that communication between you and me and Trustee Posiak, and if you can, we'd greatly appreciate having that, a formal document, so that way we have record and we can learn about that and use that as part of our plan for moving forward with the non-motorized plan. And then moving forward, hopefully we can establish a better relationship with the schools and just see, what does need to be put in place. Is it a user agreement? And, if it's a user agreement, what's specifically inside that? But just, again, for best practices and, make sure that we're all equally protected, and, we make the place, we're using our money wisely.
And I guess when you say a better relationship with the schools, we have a great relationship with the schools, but a better formalized relationship, we can certainly
duly noted.
And Dale, I think that this goes back to the fact that there may be other opportunities similar to this in the future with other organizations within the island where we may have paths on their property. And so by setting a precedence and having some things in place, we can then mimic that relationship with, the Lutheran church or the Presbyterian church or a daycare center or something like that. So, if we do something similar where we have a path on their property that we would consider part of the path system, that we have agreements in place, and we can say, well, we've already done this with the schools. I'm not trying to pick on you, but you would be the first. So, we've already got this agreement with the schools. So if you want us to take over the path and the maintenance, that then we'd be glad to do so, but we'll need to have a user agreement similar to this. So.
Understood.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. And we hope we didn't get you in too much trouble with the wife.
No, not at all.
Lisa, I have to leave. Lisa said call her before you left.
Me?
I'm supposed to call her.
Thank you, everyone. Great discussion. The next item actually, I'll look at the time. It's close to 9:30. I know we've talked a lot. There's not much left on this agenda over here. Actually, take that back. There is quite a bit. So that being said, I would like to have discussion as well as a potential vote to see, should we table this information to another meeting? Potentially we can do study sessions, or would you like to hammer through a lot of this and try and get it accomplished? I'll start with Jane. How do you feel?
The way I look at it, it could wait till next month.
Wait till next month? Great. Alan, how do you feel, sir?
I just have one issue on the liaison to channels, so we can get some advertising going for our commission. We have until vaguely the end of February to get this done. I would like to just say that maybe we can meet with, I can meet with Jane, and we could start producing our page for channels, and we have to do that in a pretty fast time fashion.
Sure.
So that's my only concern. I don't think it can wait till next meeting.
Mm-hmm. But there's nothing that we have to discuss?
No, nothing at all, except ideas on what you'd like on it.
Wally, how do you feel, sir?
Your prerogative.
Aaron, how do you feel? Would you like to, is there anything on this list that you think we need to talk about tonight in public? Or is it things that can wait either till next month, or we can hammer out via a subgroup in the meantime?
I think they can wait, or we can figure it out with subgroups.
Great. Bob, sir?
No, I think we need to adjourn for the evening.
Okay. So, do we need a vote to table these items? Or,
You can just motion to table the remaining balance.
okay. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Wait, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We'll move into reports and closing. Is there any upcoming rides and runs to publicize?
None that I'm aware of from the next month.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question. You had the annual report. Do we need to get that? Is there a deadline for that? For the annual report?
I will defer to Wally on that, but my assumption is that the annual meeting's in March, I think.
March 23rd.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we do have time to talk about the draft report next month.
February 6th is the deadline for us.
February 6th, so we have to get it to the township by February 6th?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's just communicate via email on that.
Okay.
Okay. I'll just say that one of the things that we're looking to do is be aware of all the rides and runs and group sessions that are going on within the island, so that way we could be aware of those for planning purposes, but as well as to publicize it. So if there's anybody that knows about events that would be coming up throughout the calendar year, feel free to send any information to this group. With that, I will move to have Wally have his report, the Township Liaison's report.
No report tonight.
Great. Chairman's report. There's just two things I need to mention. First of all, I did watch the Communications Commission meeting, and they were talking about social media and other external websites that were run by commissions. And most of the conversation did go, was talking about Island Fest, and I guess there's some folks from Island Fest that are looking to establish their own website. And there's also a Facebook page. And there was concern about the content over that. But in that, BPAC also got lumped into there. And one thing I just want to clear the air, that way everybody knows that the Facebook page for Groseal that relates to walking and biking issues is not an official BPAC page. It's not an official township page. It is called Groseal Walks and Bikes, and it's just a civic booster Facebook page, similar to I guess it's an informal organization that's similar in nature to Opportunity Groseal, which is a more formal organization. But it in no way is supposed to be a conduit, an actual thing for an extension of the township. So that being said, I think I visited the page recently, and there is more language on that specifies it. But I just thought everybody should be aware of that. Yes, sir.
Just a comment. This trustee will be vehemently opposed to anyone telling us that we have to go through the Communication Commission to put together a website or any other social media. That's my vote.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that information. Is there anybody else that wants to comment on the social media aspects?
I would just like to say that our friend Gary, who took many of the pictures for the path construction, we talked about at our last meeting, be able to put onto the Groseal Township website as a thing. He did concur that we could utilize those pictures. So.
Okay. Excellent. Appreciate that.
Do you have the pictures? Okay, that's taken care of.
The last thing I was just going to mention that since I was online quite a bit, I was looking at Municode, and I realized that the ordinance that establishes the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission is not on Municode, although it is on the website itself if you do a search. So I didn't know if anybody was aware of that. It might be something I'm just going to bring up with Dale moving forward, just to make sure it's on there. 'Cause it was formally adopted by the township board. Okay, that's all I have to report. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add before we move to adjournment?
What is Municode?
Oh, I'm sorry, Municode. It's like, yeah, it's short for municipal code, and each community has their own code that has all the specific laws and things that the governing body does. And Municode is a website that compiles all the municipal codes, and so that way you can go online and actually search for any item within a community's code.
Okay. Including bylaws?
Correct.
You can look at the school bylaws?
The school is a separate organization. So we'd have to find out if they're on Municode. But Groseal Township is on Municode. Most communities within Michigan have Municode accounts. I can't say that all of them do, though.
Okay.
Great. So, and with that, I would like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Rob? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting ends at 9:33. Thank you, everyone. Walk, bike, and drive safe.